We recently posted a video about Greg going out to observe with his 8-inch outreach telescope. It follows along as Greg plans for the night and takes his scope out, only to have it end with clouds. In this second video in the series, Greg tries again a few nights later. This video is a little different. It is very difficult to film in complete darkness, especially if you want to keep your dark adaptation. But it is also impossible to capture what we see with our eyes in a telescope with any camera. The camera can record what is seen, but not the way we see it. Our human eyes record stars as points of light, and our minds make adjustments to how we see things at the eyepiece in ways that a camera cannot replicate. So we are experimenting here, and I'm not sure I've ever seen anyone try this before. Greg didn't even bring a camera with him this time. Instead, he wears a microphone and talks us through what he is doing, what he is seeing, and even what he is thinking. As in the first video, he uses simple printed finder charts to find his objects. The screen won't be totally black. Graphics will be overlaid depicting what he is seeing. As a special bonus, just before leaving, Greg read an exciting post on the Comets group. A faint comet, 12P/Pons-Brooks, had suddenly brightened by 5 magnitudes, making it bright enough to observe in his telescope, and it was well placed for him during the evening high in Draco. So he eagerly added this comet to his observing list. And now here's Greg.
Okay, so I am back out where I was before. In part 1 of this, I guess we're going to call this a two-parter. I'm out at the same location. I've got the same 8-inch telescope. This time I remembered to bring my observing stool. Weather is clear-ish. There's some high clouds rolling through, and there's enough light from the town of Alamogordo, which is 4,000 feet below me, that it's lighting up the clouds. So I can see them pretty clearly, even though it should be a perfectly dark night. Also, there's a little bit of moonlight because the moon has not fully set yet. That's actually a big part of what I'm seeing, come to think of it. A little bit of twilight left, maybe? I don't know, I have to look. I'm not even sure what time it is. I just got out here, set up the telescope, and waiting to get going. Now, in addition to some of the things that I was thinking of looking at the other day, there's been an exciting development. Just before I left to take the telescope out tonight, I saw a post on the Comet forum, and a comet, an old one, Comet 12P, has had an enormous outburst, at least according to this report. This is just hot off the press. And that comet should be around 16.5 magnitude, maybe even 16.9 right now, which would make it too faint for most telescopes. It would make it pretty difficult, even in my 18-inch under a dark sky. I could probably see it, but it would take some work. Currently, it's supposed to be 11th magnitude, so that is a 5 magnitude outburst, which is pretty wild. And it just so happens I was just heading out, and it is up in Camelopardalis, which means I can see it. It's not that far from the other comet I want to look at tonight. Currently, it's in a high cloud, but that'll hopefully go away. It's a little windy. Hopefully you're not hearing any wind noise on the mic. So it's pretty exciting. Now, as nights go, this isn't anywhere near as good as the other night. I'm looking at the Milky Way. I was out here just 2 nights ago with a pair of binoculars, and man, the Milky Way was just exploding out of the sky. Right now, it sort of looks like, well, to tell you the truth, it's hard to see, which is not something I'm used to up here. The whole sky is bright, and I'm not entirely sure why. There's a considerable sky glow off to the west, which is probably the setting moon, but you know, the moon wasn't that bright. It's still a very young moon. I can't imagine, well, I mean, that sky glow wasn't there 2 nights ago, and it's after 9:30. So to tell you the truth, I'm a little baffled why the horizon is so bright. That city down there isn't normally anywhere near this bright. The whole sky is much brighter than it should be, and I can see these thin clouds moving through. It looks darker off to the south, but there also aren't any stars. So actually from I can see Scorpius pretty well, but everything to the left of Scorpius is missing. So that would be a cloud. And it's dark enough in that direction that the clouds aren't being lit up. So it's just a, but I will, hold on, I will wait out this glow in the west, which is possibly the moon. And I will start by looking at some brighter things. We had a double star, 70 Oph. I'm going to start by looking at that. So let's go ahead and put in an eyepiece. Put in my, nope, that's my Radian, not that one. Put in my widest field eyepiece, which is generally the best one, unless I want to drill down to see something fainter. This would be my old Teleview 22 millimeter Panoptic, which someone actually gave to me back in my earlier days of observing, which was very kind of them. It was an eyepiece they weren't using anymore. It was a fairly expensive eyepiece at the time. Now it's like 20 years old, but you know, it's still a great eyepiece. So, given what we've got tonight, where should we start? Oh, well, that's bad. We need to start by putting the finder back on. It was here earlier. Oh, I see it came off in transport. Rolling into the back of the car now. I've got this finding device attached with, let's make sure it goes the right direction, attached with double-sided tape. And I had a little accident earlier with it while I was loading it in the car. Loosened it and it fell off. All right, I've got it back. So let's find something bright. Point it at something easy and low in the sky. What am I looking at up there? That looks like it's Arcturus. I'm gonna set it on Arcturus, turning it on because we have to, because I just jammed this thing on here, we have to go ahead and calibrate the finder so we know where it's pointing. You're going to hear this thing creaking because I didn't bother to grease it up. It has a history of creaking anyhow. All right, I'm at the eyepiece. And it has been a long day today. I spent all day fixing a super nasty bug in Sky Tools. See, there's a bright star there. I think we're actually pretty close. That was easy. Focuses pretty well. That's good. That bug, it was tricky to figure out what was going wrong, and it was very tricky to fix. I had to sit and think about it for quite a while to figure out how I would fix it, but I did. Wow, so this thing is not too far off. Just did a little. Oh, this is terribly exciting. And we are centered. All right, finder is now functional. It's clearing off a little. Not a great night. Let's just swing around to. Boy, I'm rusty at this. What is the globular cluster right next to Antares? M3? Yeah, boy, this is not a great night. Wow, that is a less than happy view of a magnificent globular cluster. So what am I seeing? Seeing a big ball of stars. But mostly it's a big ball of fuzz. Sky's fairly bright in the background. Stars are twinkling pretty bad. Kind of low in the sky. It's still early in the evening. The seeing wasn't supposed to be good tonight anyhow. That's astronomical seeing, how steady the atmosphere is. I can resolve, with averted vision, I can resolve a few stars in the middle of this big fuzzy blob, and with averted vision, it gets bigger. Mostly, it just looks like a big fuzzy blob. Sort of a bright center-ish, and a smattering of faint stars that sort of go in and out of view. Not the view that I'm used to in my 18-inch. You know, I'm looking at it. I think I'm cutting off my view over the car. I think I put the scope a little too close to the car. I was hoping for a windbreak. So maybe that wasn't the best choice. A first object, looking up at the Milky Way. There's a cloud there. Think you might be able to get the dumbbell. No. Well, I can see it's hard to navigate. Oh wait, yeah, I wasn't even in the right part of the sky. Down there, those couple stars are Cygnus. And yeah, Beta Cygnus area is completely covered with clouds. Wow, it was supposed to be very clear tonight. It was very clear all day. So it just didn't occur to me that we would have clouds right at this particular time. This light, I think there's something wrong with it. I tested it before it came out here and it worked perfectly. And now, every time I turn it turns on in white light mode, which is pretty darned annoying. But you know what? That is the life of a visual observer. All right, 70 OF. I know right about where this is without a chart. But we're going to use a chart so I don't look at the wrong star. I really just need the naked eye part. There's a funky little group that makes kind of a V. It's the middle left one. So all I need to do is find that funky little group. Swinging the scope. Let's see what we got. So this is a long period binary star. And what that means is it has an orbit. And we can see it move over time. And when I was a teenager and a young astronomer, this thing was about as close as the two stars get. And throughout my lifetime since then, it's gotten wider and wider. And about now, it is pretty much at its widest part. Wow, that should be easy to do, but there's so many clouds. I'm having trouble getting it on the star. But, whoa, okay. It's cool. I just saw a satellite go through my field of view when I looked in the eyepiece. Wow, this is bad. I guess you could claim that trying to navigate like this with clouds would be a lot easier if I was using a go-to telescope, and you wouldn't be wrong. And for looking at a double star, that would be a good thing. But we're looking at other things, and we're going to be looking through clouds. And we don't want to be looking through clouds. So I can't see enough of those stars with the naked eye to really figure out where I'm at. I mean, I'm really just looking in a sucker hole. So we're going to have to wait on 70 OF. But meanwhile, it is clearing off to the north. I can see Polaris clearly up through Ursa Minor is vertical tonight. And I believe that comet is to the, whoa, just saw a nice little meteor go right through that field of view. I believe the comet is above that. Now there's still some clouds there, but it's not like it is in the south. I can still see stars. So if I can turn on my, white light again. What the heck? There's something wrong with this thing. I have to turn on the white light and then switch it over to the red light, and that's getting very old. All right, let me check my chart here. Let's see if we can find the other comet. Let's get the Turtle Nebula. The rocket ball is not visible right now. Neither is the dumbbell or the cat's eye. So what what do we have here? I'm just going my charts around. 2023 E1 Atlas, I think, is in the area where I don't have clouds right now. So now I'm going to go for that. I'm studying the chart. And what I'm seeing is I'm looking at the naked eye chart on the left of this thing, and I can see Ursa Minor, and I can see the circles for the bullseye for the finder off to the right. So if I go up 2 stars in the handle of Ursa Minor, and then over and to the right, there should be 2 stars there. And that's what I'm aiming at. So those aren't particularly bright stars. I could kind of get lost with all this, all these clouds. So I might start up and to the right of that. There's a big bright triangle. Let's see if I can spot that with the naked eye. Okay. Yeah, I can see that bright triangle. And now can I spot the stars? Yeah, boy, this is cleared off in this. This is the one part of the sky I can actually see right now. So 1, 2 stars up and over, I see a star. Let's see what we got on the chart here. That would be this one. So I'm going to go up into the left of that star. It's a fairly crowded field, so it should be pretty easy to recognize in the eyepiece, and I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't pop out at me. It should be pretty big and obvious. Probably looked a lot like a dimmer globular cluster. So let's see what we can do here. Find the part of the sky I'm looking at, and there's my star. Finder pointed at it. We will have a look in the eyepiece, see what we see. I don't see a big fuzzy comet, but I see an interesting group of stars that looks kind of familiar. So let's go back and look at the chart again. White light. That's getting annoying. Yeah, that looks a lot like the group of stars I'm looking for. So how do we make sure that's the right one? Well, there's a parallelogram. The right side is the star in the upper right hand corner is sort of sticking out a little. It's too far up and to the right. And then to the right of that is another bright star. So that should be pretty easy to find. And I can see now, I'm sort of memorizing the position of the comet on the right side of that thing. I think we got it. Not sure why the comet didn't pop right out. Go back. I think that's actually the right group of stars. Those are other parallelograms. Second star over, there's our star. Be looking right there. Oh, that's interesting. Took me right to it that time, and I see the comet. So I see that parallelogram, and then to the right is our friend the comet, and kind of an unmistakable big fuzzy thing, about the right size as it shows on the chart, which is always good. I don't think it's exactly in the right spot, but I'll check that in a minute. Right now, let me describe what I'm seeing. Okay, a little averted vision. It's a nice round fuzzy ball. It looks a lot like a globular cluster does when it's unresolved. Not any stars in it, of course. It does not have a bright center. It gets a little brighter as you go to the center, but it's pretty fuzzy. And I'd say it lines up close to the being right off the end of these 2 stars here. Let me go mark on my chart where I see it and verify. White light. Damn. Yeah, it is not where the chart shows it. I see that I printed the chart for 11:30. It's probably moving. Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to come back and check. But it is definitely probably about one width of the comet off. It's up and to the right where the chart shows it. This is a bright comet. It's well tracked. It should have a good orbit. So the only thing I can think of is it's not 11:30 and it's moving up and to the right. All right, well, that was successful. That's pretty cool. Let's go on. Let's stop screwing around and go find this comet that has exploded. Literally. Well, okay, not literally. Literally. You know, we don't really know why comets like this have outbursts. There's a number of ideas. There's one comet that has outbursts over and over again. Is this my chart? Got one in here backwards. It's probably the one I stuck in here. Comet 29P has an outburst. Oh, charts are flying off in the wind. That is fun. Oh boy. Is this a comet? No, that's a Turtle Nebula. Okay. Let's go around to the back of the car where I'm shaded from the wind and pick up the charts that just flew off and find our dumb comet chart. There's always something in it. And of course, just as I was reaching for this thing, it starts flying off. Come back. Well, this is going to make a great video or podcast or whatever you want to call it. All right. Okay, so why do comets have outbursts? Well, one idea is that they're devil comets, and that causes some sort of interaction. Stuff crashes down onto the surface. Stuff explodes off the surface. Remember, the gravity on a comet is very small. So it doesn't take much to dislodge things. It could be as simple as a binary comet, and maybe it's a binary comet that's in contact, and there's an avalanche basically that happens every once in a while, and that explodes a bunch of dust and gas out into the area around it, and then that creates a big bright cloud which gets lit up by the sun, which is what we see anyhow. We just see this cloud of stuff that's around the comet. We don't see the comet itself. So if you have some sort of avalanche that explodes stuff out into the area around it, then it's going to brighten up, right? There's a lot more dust and gas in the cloud around the comet, and that makes it brighter. So something is causing a bunch of gas and dust, mostly dust, to be released. It has cleared off really well in the area where this comet is. So this could get cool. So there's a North Celestial Pole. It's going to be up by the head of Draco. There it is. It's in the clear zone now. Pretty easy to navigate to. The bottom right star in the head of Draco. You know, if we made kind of a long triangle with that, and the bright star at the top on that side, that's about where the comet would be. So I'm just going to go and confidently point my telescope at that. Turning off my headlamp, getting down. Well, this is going to be a bit of a pain because I'm going to have to kneel down because this one's getting higher in the sky. Oh, God, I just love kneeling down on gravel. Don't you? All right, I can see the bullseye. It's blinking. I'm going to move right about there. Standing up, putting my stool down, peering into the telescope, and nothing fuzzy has jumped out at me. Let's go back to the chart. Back to the chart. What are we looking at in the eyepiece? We're looking at almost like a little cluster of stars there. So, you know, what I think I'm going to look for is in the upper left. It's this, it actually looks a lot like the grouping of stars where 70 Oph is. Kind of a, I don't know, a lambda kind of shape. I'm going to look for that. And I'm going to start by resetting it where I think it should be. Then if I have to, pan around a little bit to look for that distinctive group of stars. So going back down into the gravel. Oh, I should have brought a pad. Should be visible in the field. So back at the eyepiece, and boom, there's my funky group of stars, and lined straight up and down. Going back to the chart. Okay, so since it's oriented like that, we're going to follow it straight down to this other grouping. There's two stars sort of leading up above that grouping. And the comet is right in between the two, closer to the bottom one. Back to the eyepiece. Found my grouping. Or yes, now I found my grouping. When I go down, there are the two stars leading up. And there's a third star halfway between them. Focusing again. Think about it as something happens, some sort of event happens on the nucleus of the comet. And suddenly all this dust is released. Squirting out. The comet is rotating around slowly, and this stuff is squirting out into space around it as it rotates. There's a lot of dust released all at once, right in close to the nucleus. So the nucleus so the comet is going to look small. That coma is tiny, tiny and bright. And over the next few days, it'll probably grow and grow and grow. It may get brighter, it may get fainter. Total brightness will probably stay about the same, but we'll probably start seeing a larger and larger nucleus. It's hard to say. Who knows what's actually going on there? We can only sort of estimate it based on what we've seen in the past. I'm assuming that star halfway between the two is our comet. Back to the chart. Yes, there is no other star similar in brightness to those two. And again, this chart's for 11:30. Not sure. Let me get my phone out and see what time it is. 10:30. So presumably this comet is moving to the left a little, and it's going to, or to the right a little. And right now it's halfway between those two stars, and it's going to end up closer to the bottom one. So I guess it's moving down as in an hour. So we can test that when I get home, and I can pop in, editing me can pop in later and see what's going on. Or if is the orbit off. But I am quite confident that even though it looks like a star, that is the comet that is an outburst. And it's going to be interesting to see what goes on. You know, maybe the next thing I should do is go see if I can find an eye telescope in the northern hemisphere that is available this evening and see if I can get some images of this thing. It'll be interesting to take images of it over the next few days. So I'll see if I can get time on it every night. Hopefully the same telescope. This sort of, whoa, that was a bright, yeah, I think that was an Iridium Flare. I can still see the satellite, but the satellite up to the north in Ursa Major just brightened significantly, had sort of a yellow tinge to it, and then slowly faded. And then I could see the satellite moving on beyond that. That's typically an Iridium Flare. That's what they look like. Could be the flare off of a different satellite. Anyhow, so what was I saying? I was saying that it would be interesting to see how this thing evolves over the next days and weeks. So I will start imaging it. I could put in my 8mm Radian, but you know, I don't think this thing is resolvable because it looks just like the other stars. And even in this 25mm eyepiece, I suspect that it would appear slightly fuzzy, if it was fuzzy at all. I'm going to go back, I'm going to look again and see if I can convince myself if it's slightly fuzzy or not. I'll get myself a good focus. And fortunately, we're way up north, so this thing isn't drifting much. It's down and to the right from where it was when I left it. So let's focus on this inner star near the center. Yeah, no, it just looks like a star. Well, that's pretty cool. I've spotted this comet that I should not have been able to see in this telescope, except that it's had some sort of crazy outburst. And it wasn't hard to see, right? I mean, I pretty much went right to it. The awkward part is that I've got the charts on top of the car. So I walk back and forth. I'm turning on my headlamp, and my headlamp comes up white every time. And that's annoying. I really got to figure out what's going on there. I'll work on that tomorrow. Milky Way is looking much better. You know, maybe I will sneak in a look at M11 or maybe the dumbbell. Yeah, I'm sort of pointlessly. You can hear the scope groaning as I move it. Kind of embarrassing. It needs some maintenance. But it's been quite a while since I used it. I'm just going around in a circle search, just sort of widening the circle, but I should have come across it by now. Well, okay. So I went on record saying I could just point my telescope straight at this puppy, but apparently that was optimistic. Wait, it should be right there. I can see the stars. Let me go back to the finder. Supposed to be right in there. Nice star fields. And that's one thing you can be thinking, wow, I can't find it. I'm so frustrated. But to be honest, it's the Milky Way. And there are a lot of bright stars in this field of view. And this is why I'm an astronomer. No, I don't care. I don't see it. I suppose I could be embarrassed. I'm not going to be. That is a beautiful star field. I found a nice grouping. I'm just going to enjoy them. Yeah. I have no idea where I'm looking, what I'm looking at. I have the general idea. But that's a nice grouping of fairly bright stars. Maybe I can find it later and show it to you. I don't know. There's enough brighter stars that the background sky looks darker. And that's an interesting psychological thing. I don't hear people talk about that much. You know, I live in a fairly dark site, and I've seen some really, really dark skies. And people go on about how dark the sky is. But a really good sky, a really transparent sky, isn't actually dark. You want a high contrast, you want the Milky Way to just stand out. That's how you know there's a really good transparent sky. But here's this crazy thing. If I point any telescope, especially a wide field eyepiece, in the Milky Way, where there's lots of stars, and I kind of make myself aware of how bright is the sky background, how bright does it appear? It looks pretty dark. And then I'll move off from the Milky Way, not too far away, but where there's far fewer stars. And I always have the impression that the sky is much brighter. What the heck is that all about? And this is consistent. And it's just a contrast thing with your eye and the way your eye works, apparently. There's enough bright stars there that your eye sort of considers those, and compared to those, the sky background is dark. If you go off where there's only just some faint stars, you don't have those bright ones to compare to anymore. This is what I think is going on, at least. And the sky looks bright. But it's okay for the sky to look kind of bright in the eyepiece. There is no such thing as a truly dark sky. I mean, the darkest sky is out in the middle of nowhere with total cloud cover, right? If you have a perfectly transparent night, the kind of night where the Milky Way casts shadows, and I have seen nights like that, then when you're looking in the eyepiece, you're going to see some bright sky because you can see that sky glow. It's still there. It's just more transparent. So in a way, the transparency allows you to see the sky glow, which means that it's not dark. On this night, when it is not transparent, the Milky Way is visible. A lot of people If you've never seen a really good Milky Way, you would probably be standing here telling me, wow, look at that, I can see all those clouds. But I was just out here 2 nights ago, and it was so much better. So I'm not, to tell you the truth, I don't know what's different. The clouds have mostly gone away. It's just, I guess the sky isn't what we call transparent. What do we mean when we say the sky is transparent? I mean, we all know the sky has a lot of contrast to it, and we can see the Milky Way really clearly. And that's what we mean by transparent. We take out our big giant daubs and we point at some really faint planetary nebula, and we use our averted vision and we can see it, and on other nights we can't. That's what we mean by transparent. But this night, since I have such a recent, fresh memory of looking at this exact same sky, wow, it looks so different. The Milky Way is all washed out, and it's not light pollution, it's not moonlight, and it's not direct clouds. I mean, I can see 2 clouds still out to the west. They're being lit up by Alamogordo. And out to the southeast, there's still not a lot of stars out there. So I would say this is one of those nights that is not transparent. That is an odd sound. Sounds like kind of a bird. I've seen bears out here. They don't really scare me. I've had bears go by. I think of bears as just, they're black bears. They're not dangerous bears. And they're not that big. I think of them as just big raccoons. And if I leave them alone, they'll leave me alone. I couldn't find any instance of I'm rambling now, I know, but I have not found any instances in newspapers or whatever of a bear ever seriously injuring anyone here in the Sacramento Mountains. Maybe it's happened. I don't know. I think they're cool. I like seeing them. I'm going to ramble one more thing. I'm going to tell you a little story. That other night when I was out here, I'm on my way home, and I'm driving through the village of Cloudcroft, and I'm driving up along a narrow village street, and I'm coming up just close to the lodge. The lodge is an old hotel here. And I was just approaching the parking lot to the lodge. There weren't a lot of lights. And I see this big furry beast coming at me straight down the middle of the road. Like, what the heck am I looking at? I couldn't identify it. First, I figured it was a raccoon because it was so fuzzy. It was very fuzzy, furry, fuzzy looking. It's coming straight at me. So I slow down. I got my headlights on bright. I'm slow down, and it just keeps walking right at me. And as it gets closer, it had its head down, whatever it was. I looked at it and I said, what are you? And I come to a stop, and it just keeps going straight towards the car. And then I see these 2 big legs. I'm like, are you walking on your hind legs? What am I looking at? I'm seeing 2 legs. It's walking on these 2 legs. It's getting closer and closer and closer. And it's about 4 feet in front of the car now, and it stops, and it lifts its head up. And suddenly I see this big, round, fuzzy head with these 2 giant round eyes. And I say, you're an owl. This thing was the size of a penguin. I mean, it was tall, it was big. And it looked at me and just flew off. And that was pretty cool. I've seen owls up here before. I've never seen one that close before. It was like it was on stage. It was in my headlights right there in front of me. This is what happens when you go outside, right? It's, especially when we're doing imaging, it's really easy to become disconnected to the night sky. And part of why I'm doing this, recording it is fun. It makes it a project, and maybe I can share it with people, and maybe somebody will be inspired to go out and look at the sky, even if in their binoculars or their 8-inch telescope or whatever. If somebody is hearing this, then that's awesome. But for me, it's an excuse to get out here, to drag the little telescope out and set it up. It's not that hard. It's only 8 minutes from my house, and reconnect to my old friends, reconnect to these objects in the sky that I've been looking at since I was a teenager, and I've seen in every kind of telescope you can imagine. I remember one night I was observing on the size of that telescope, 86-inch at McDonald Observatory. I was doing spectroscopy, and it was a night very much like this. Clouds, crappy. It was worse than this. I couldn't even observe the bright stars. that I was observing, I was doing spectroscopy on. And so I just started pointing it at things. I think I remember, if I remember right, I looked at M13, which was pretty cool in an 86-inch telescope, even at the wrong kind of focus. It's really important to connect with those things. Why did you become an astronomer in the first place, an amateur astronomer or a professional astronomer? Why is this something that interests you? And it's really easy to focus on the technology, and that's fun and it's cool, but you're sitting inside at your desk running your telescope outside. Maybe it's a good idea to go outside every once in a while and reconnect. Look at the stars. I know not everybody has a dark sky sight, but if you do go someplace where it's dark, you go camping or you're on vacation, get out there into that dark sky. Bring your binoculars. I have this pair of 8 by 56 binoculars that I've been dragging around with me for 25 years. They are awesome. 5.6 degrees. They're not that bigger than regular binoculars, but a little bit better, a little more aperture, wide field of view, wider field of view. If you've got better binoculars, that's awesome too. But they tend to get heavier and bigger, and then now you're thinking of maybe telescope mounts. These are still pretty well handheld, so I really like them. I can take them with me on an airplane, right? So I do. I take them with me. I've been invited to speak at star parties and flown there and not had a telescope, which is weird. I'm looking around, I'm looking at all these people, and they've got their big dogs and their imaging systems, and here I am with my 56 millimeter Celestron binoculars. But you know what? I still have a great time. Get myself a chair, kick back, check in with my old friends, and just scan the Milky Way. Just scan the Milky Way. Hey, is that the North American Nebula? I think it is. Where the heck is M27? A lot of times I don't prepare. I just scan around with my binoculars. I'll prepare if there's something like a comet. There's these charts that I came up with that just plots the position of the comet every night for like a week on the same binocular chart. Usually they don't move that much. Every night, that's one chart, and then I take it with me, and then every night I know where it's at. Plotted here, plotted there with the date. And I just pick the date, and I go, well, let's see, it says 10:30. That's calculated as the best time to look at it. So now I know the best time to look at it. I go out and I look at it, wherever I am, if I'm in a dark sky. Well, I'm rambling now. What do you say we have a look at the Ring Nebula before we go? Yeah, let's do that. Unfortunately, most of the Milky Way is still ick, but the Ring Nebula is big and bright. And it's not like I can't find it, right? Hopefully everybody can find the Ring Nebula. I mean, I forget sometimes which of the stars it's closest to. So, you got your parallelogram that makes Lyra and the stars on the end away from Vega. One of which just disappeared, which isn't a good sign. It's right between them, closer to one than the other. Right now, I can't remember which is which. The orientation changes. It doesn't matter. Let's look in the eyepiece. Hey, there's a bright star. And a little too close to Dobson's hole here. There we are. Okay, I found it. I really need to do some maintenance on this thing. All right, we got a nice little smoke ring there. Smaller than I was expecting. Because, this isn't my 18-inch dog. Nice and bright. And with averted vision, it looks mostly round. It doesn't look all that elongated. Averted vision, there is definitely a donut in the center. Don't see a central star or anything like that. For those of you who don't do a lot of this, you've got to kind of learn to see in just moments and then just sort of store them away. It's almost like doing lucky imaging, right? You know, when you're taking a whole bunch of, or you're taking video basically of a planet, and then you just pick out the frames where the scene was so good, everything was sharp, and you stack those together to make a really sharp photo. You got to do that kind of in your head. At the edge of your ability to see, you use averted vision, and you go, what did I see? I saw something. I saw a donut. Okay, well, I saw it again. I saw it again. And then you kind of, in your mind, you kind of stack those things together and make a picture in your head. A round ring with a donut. Look a lot like a glowing donut. Which is not the view I get in my 18-inch, but that's the view I get in this thing tonight. Little donut. Little fuzzy donut. Okay, I'm gonna pack up. Get the heck out of here. Start rambling. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to make anything useful out of this. But before I go, what did we see? Not a whole lot. This was not really about seeing lots of things quickly, being very efficient. This was just about reconnecting with the sky and seeing that comet. Okay, we saw 2 comets tonight in an 8-inch telescope. And the second one, well, you know, it looked like a star. I wouldn't have recognized it as a comet unless I had a chart. And I'm glad I had a chart that makes it really easy because it matches the magnitude limit of the scope. So, you know, when I knew where it was going to be, I found those 2 stars, boom, there it was. So we saw 2 comets, Miss 70, and what else did we see? Is that all we saw? Well, that's the highlight for me. I love comets because they're faint fuzzies that come and go. You know, that little donut will always be that little donut up there. But a comet will take you to a new field that you've never looked at before because you've never had a reason to point the telescope there before. I love that. Take in the patterns of the stars and think about the fact that this view that you're seeing, you're probably not going to see again. There's not going to be any reason to be looking at that part of the sky. And remember, I'm going to remember that little line of stars, right? There's 3 stars. And the fact that I know that that middle one is actually a comet and something crazy has happened because I should not have been able to see that comet. If I'd been out here last night, I wouldn't have been able to see it. So something wild happened in that nucleus. I'm going to start imaging it, and maybe I can put together some sort of animation because I have a feeling it's going to just sort of expand. All right, I'm going to stop rambling, turn everything off now. Thanks for coming along on this crazy little journey.